Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Government of Anguilla press conference. It's good to see you all here. Just let me welcome the media. We have Felicia Ennis from Radio Anguilla, Carlton Pickering from KCN Channel 4. We have Jerome Harrigan from New Beginnings Radio, and we have Dietz, of course, who's always here. And we have the Public Relations Officer and also a liaison to the Spanish-speaking community. I want to welcome the ministers who are here with us today. And before we go on, I'll ask Minister Hodge, lead us in a word of prayer.
Thank you, Premier. Dear Lord, we come before you this afternoon giving you thanks and praise for this opportunity to be here today, for life, for hope, for opportunity. We ask for your blessings, your guidance as we go through this afternoon's press conference. We ask for discernment, we ask for clarity of thought, of thinking, of expression. And at the end of the day, whatever is said and done here today is to the honor and glory of your name. These things we bring before your name today. Amen.
Amen. So welcome again, everyone, and certainly, want to, give condolences to those who are mourning the loss of loved ones. For those who are sick, we ask for God's mercy upon them, that they have speedy recoveries. And we do know that, we have some of our people who are off in distant lands getting medical care. And we certainly pray for their well-being and for their safe return home when that is possible. I will say, Minister Kentish Rogers is absent today. She's attending a conference for Ministers of Social Development. And without much further ado, I will actually go to Minister Hughes to give us an update on his ministries. Right underneath.
Thank you very much, Premier, and good afternoon to everyone. It's indeed sad that we don't have the Daily Herald here, but we see we have a new addition to the press corps. Welcome, sir. Just quickly to update you on tourism. The Department of Tourism will be the Director of Tourism, will be in St. Lucia this week to attend an OECS regional marketing meeting, which he forms part of the working group. I'm currently working with the 11 EDF-funded OECS Niche Tourism Initiative. Work is on its way to develop the multi-destination packages inclusive of tour itineraries and simultaneously on the digital marketing campaign. She will be joined by her counterparts across the Caribbean. As you know, Barbados will host the for the first Caribbean Tourism Travel Marketplace from May the 9th to the 11th, 2023. Unfortunately, we will not have any attendance from the ministry this year, as other ministers will be off island, and we need to have a cadre here on island to hold the fort. But Caribbean Tourism Week will be returning this year for the first time since COVID. It will be held in New York from June the 5th to the 8th, and the CTO is very excited about the Caribbean Tourism Week. It's where the 33 member states, actually there's more member states now, will be attending the CTO in New York. There'll be media, there'll be so much that is going on. As you know, this is an event that has been occurring for quite some years, about over 20 years, with the exception of the COVID years. The American Airlines, just to give you an update on American Airlines, the April load factor was just over 90%, which is phenomenal. The May projections right now, it stands at 83%. June at 67%, July stands at 44%, and August, unbelievably, is up to 27%, which is really, really good when you take into consideration it's so far out. And there have not been any announcement of any closure dates yet because, as you know, it is a goal and desire of this administration to have year-round tourism. And so far, we've had one hotel that has committed with 2 pending. I don't want to speak to the 2 that are pending right now, but there are 2 major hotels that are pending in terms of whether or not we will have them open this year. If not this year, next year we hope to have 5 of the major hotels and a number of the other properties open year-round. If God spare us the ravages of any hurricanes, tropical storms that will hurt the plant. As you know, we now have a new board of directors for the Anguilla Electricity Company. Unfortunately, we have lost 1 member as the church have had some pressure from persons here on island, and an ultimatum was given to one of the members of the board who is a Methodist minister. And that minister have decided to stay with the church and has tendered his resignation. It is unfortunate, and it spells and reeks of hypocrisy. Because when you take into consideration Reverend Damian Hughes, who is a Methodist minister, is not the only man of the cloth who has served on boards here in Anguilla. As a matter of fact, the Dr. H. Clifton Niles served on the board of directors of ANGLIC. He also served as a Constitutional Electoral Reform Committee chairman. Reverend John A. Gums served on the boards. And if you go back to 1994, Reverend John A. Gums was the 2nd parliamentary secretary in Anguilla. And as you can know, there was a lot of controversy surrounding that because he was still in holy orders. And he had served on the Constitutional Electoral Reform Committee. Reverend Richard Gums also served on a number of boards up until his death, and he was a Methodist minister. Pastor Gareth Hodge was not only a member of ANGLIC, but he was also the chairman of the board of directors of ANGLIC as of very recently. Mr. Rodney Ray, who holds a very prominent position in the Methodist Church, also served as the chairman of the board of ANGLIC. So when the rules are skewed in this way, it says a lot to me. And it is something that have not been lost, not only here at this table, but also have not been lost in the general public. Because even before the resignation was granted, already on social media, there were certain persons who were boasting that one of the members have already resigned. Now, I want to say this. One of the radio stations that continue to propagate the most ridiculous things, case in point today, Mr. Evan Rugby Lake made the assertion that at the end of all of this thing relating to renewable energy, we want to see what the Premier is getting out of it personally. To my mind, that is dangerous and defamatory. And maybe it is because the Premier is a nice gentleman. He is not going to do anything about it. But those things should not be left unchecked. Mr. Lake also said a lot of things about my deceased father, which I don't take too kindly because he's not around to defend himself. But be that as it may, the pronouncement that Mr. Hughes, Reverend Hughes, had already resigned was made even before anybody knew. Apart from that, it was said that we placed him on the board without him knowing, which is utterly ridiculous because there's a process in which persons are placed on the board of directors of ANGLIC. They have to submit to the corporate secretary with outside of 7 days their interest to serve. They have to submit a resume to the corporate secretary. They have to submit a police record. All of that was done in due time by every single member of the board. So we did not just throw people on the board of directors. It was done through the right and due process. So I just want to make that clear, and I just want to put that on record. I want to quickly update you on the airport. As you know, the enabling works for the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport Terminal is completed. What we call the temporary parking lot has been completed. The lights are in, the pathways are done, the pedestrian pathway is also done. The initial apron east of the old cargo building is completed. The parallel taxiway is completed, and some of the driveway into what we will have as a new cargo facility is also completed. The new cargo facility, we are on schedule. We are up to, the design is right now 60% completed, and we hope to release to the public by the end of this week the renderings of the new cargo facility that we built on the long run side. Once that is completed, we'll demolish the existing cargo facility, and we intend to extend the apron further west towards the old terminal building. The new terminal building, the design is 30% completed. We hope to have it 90% completed by July of this year, and the tender process should be completed by December of this year. And hopefully we can mobilize in December of this year for January construction start, and we hope to have the building occupied by May of 2025. So that is my update, my short update, and my rant as well for today.
Mr. Hughes, as it relates to Reverend Hughes's resignation, I know you said due to due to pressure from some members of the public, but there is a view on the other side that perhaps he may have resigned because he does not believe in government's position as it relates to the PPA.
That is political propaganda. Absolute
Ridiculous.
rubbish, ludicrous and ridiculous. That is not the position of Reverend Hughes. That is a political gossip out there. He resigned purely because individuals, some of which who are part of the failed National Bank of Anguilla, who collapsed that bank, made calls to put pressure on him, because these same failed individuals want to own the renewable plant. They have failed with NBA, they have failed with NICA, they continue to fail, and now they want to embark on energy for Anguilla to fail and create a situation where we have blackouts every day. It is not going to work. Anguillians deserve people who are not greedy, are not selfish, who look at country first and want to ensure that electricity is delivered at a lower cost. We can transform our electricity sector, bring lower costs to the people of Anguilla that is sustainable, and reduce the cost of living.
Mr. Reverend Hughes is another person's name may have been around for some time. I think some of the names are proposed from last year before the previous board. Reverend Hughes, I guess times have changed in terms of the discussions, but again, he's an individual who can make an educated decision for himself. Do you really think that he really bowed to pressure from some members of the public?
Absolutely. No, he bowed from pressures from the church, not from the public, from the church. He was selected to be on the board before, as you know. We had to restart the entire process because when we submitted those names, they used the clause where you had to submit the names 7 working days before the meeting, and you had to submit them to the corporate office. We covered all bases this time around. So this is not the first time he has been selected to be a member of the board. Now, everybody's going to make an educated decision. The reality is that Anglic, as it stands right now, and as it stands when Sutcliffe Hodge became the CEO of Anglic, to this day, does not have the ability, whether the bank, the finances, to embark on their renewable energy plan, and they don't have a bank or financial institution lined up to borrow the money from. From the very inception when we had this discussion, the CEO said he's going to look to the CDB to borrow this money. The Premier said to him, we've said this before, yes, but you have to have the blessings of government. And it's fine, we're all moving in the same direction. Instead of pursuing that venue, he decided, along with the chairman at the time, Mr. Patrick Mardenborough, and Mr. Max Arthur Hodge, to take to radio to bash the Premier, to give the impression that there was something that was untoward. Right? And that is that's a line that they pursued without considering that the Caribbean Development Bank, and whatever you say on radio, whatever you say in the media, is not only for local consumption. It goes out there. And the Caribbean Development Bank and these type of institutions you usually work through governments. So how are you going to have an acrimonious relationship with the principal shareholder want to pursue energy will not produce financials, not only to the principal shareholder or the electricity commissioner, but even the bank in which you are to seek to lend the money from. So at the end of the day, you don't have the financial wherewithal, you don't have the ability to borrow. How will you truly move into renewable energy integration without those factors? And I've said before, the CEO, the present CEO, and the outgoing chairman, for over 30 years, have been talking about renewable energy integration. For over 30 years, we've been talking about the Valley Main Road. For 20 years, we've been talking about a bypass. For 50, 60 years, we've been talking about the development of the airport. For decades, we've been talking about granting healthcare to over 70s. And this administration, in less than 3 years, have been able to deliver on all of those things against severe criticism and backlash. And the only thing that we now need to ensure that we can deliver to the people is that of cheaper electricity through renewable energy integration. Now, if it is that we had all the funding in place to be able to go it alone, we could do so. But when they try to give the impression that by having a company, whoever it is, provide the solar or the wind or the waste to energy or whatever mechanism you're going to use to the plant, that we are outsourcing our company, is ludicrous and ridiculous, because right now when you buy fuel from Delta or Sol, it pumps into the generators, then Anguilla distributes the electricity. What we'll be doing is replacing the fossil fuels with renewable and reusable energy. So what is the difference? The only difference is that we're going to be having a significantly lower cost to the consumer, to the business community, and the people of Anguilla at large. And then it also becomes a marketing tool for tourism, because our goal is also to be one of the few destinations in the world that can boast total renewable energy integration.
Mr. Hughes, you talked about that this has been something that has been spoken about for years, and now this is the APM's goal to get it done. But at the end of the day, some persons are looking at it seems as if it's a rush project for government in terms of just a checklist to say it has been accomplished within less than 5 years, as opposed to taking your time and really doing it in the phased approach as recommended or suggested by the Farmer Board.
No, nothing this administration has done has been rushed. Everything this administration has done has been done with close scrutiny. It isn't Dr. Webster, Minister Kenneth Hodge, Minister Deanne Kentish Rogers, Minister Quincy Gomes-Marie, Hayden Hughes, Mary Richardson, Courtney Morton, who is going to do the RFP, who's going to put out the tender, who's going to go over the tender documents, who's going to go into all of the technical aspects of it. It isn't us. It is for those who have that skill set to do so. Not once have any of us granted any contract to any persons to do in a project. It's not going to be rushed. This is something that has been talked about. They said the same thing with the Valley Main Road, but it's there, being driven on. So it is not an issue of rushing, but it's an issue of delivering. And we said in October 5 of 2019 that change can't wait, and it really can't wait. So we will not allow the tactics, the gimmicks, the games, the ridiculous lies in so-called public relations on the media to deter the goal to deliver for the people of this country. You're talking about over 2 years before the elections is held. This isn't about electioneering. This is about putting Anguilla on a strong footing, so no matter what happens after the election, Anguilla will be on a strong footing.
Do you think with this new board, this perhaps may push out the CEO? I mean, he's on contract. But
that has nothing to do with the CEO. The board and the CEO, as far as I know, this board doesn't have any conflict. This isn't about pushing out the CEO. This isn't about reprimanding the CEO. This isn't about going after the CEO. The CEO is there. As a matter of fact, when Sutcliffe Hodge was appointed as the CEO, I was the happiest person, because I thought that here's somebody who I also supported politically, who can do a great job, who can deliver on this promise, someone who has been talking about renewable energy forever, right, since he was a young man. So I was very excited about the prospects. But very early o'clock, I realized that our goals were not aligned. And when your goals are not aligned, then we have to be able to come to some sort of compromise. We are always willing to compromise, but I don't think the compromise is always willing to come to us.
Minister Hughes, with all the Sehagat Anguilla, What is the way forward?
The way forward, I expressed the way forward before. The way forward is to deliver on sustainable, lower cost electricity to the people of this country and to reduce the cost of living to the people of Anguilla. That's the ultimate goal.
As it relates to the way forward as well, speaking as the Minister for Renewable Energy Development, government aspiration to seeing the integration of renewable energy, it's not a fly-by-night one or one that was without immense thought that was put into it. It also may not happen before 2025, who knows, but there is still a need for Anguilla and countries throughout the region to become energy independent, because our dependency on energy has compromised our sustainability, our cost of living, and it has a great impact on the cost of goods on the shelves. And these are things that people expect government to intervene on. And when governments so passionately pursue these things, it should not be taken as something with an ulterior motive. Our aspiration to see ANGLIC move towards renewable energy is not void of the support and integration of ANGLIC itself. In fact, ANGLIC will have full autonomy in that process, but as a stakeholder, you can have a shareholder, you can have conversations in terms of how you would like that to look. Government's position has simply been, we question the financial sustainability of a loan, but a PPA is another alternative when you don't have the funds to do so. But it is still, the onus is still on ANGLIC to complete the technical analysis, to work with the technical persons, whether it is regional or international, whoever they would like to engage, to complete the technical analysis to ensure that the two options go under proper scrutiny through an option analysis, and then when a proper decision is made, move forward. And if a PPA is chosen, and we assume from the lack of information we have, and also from what ANGLIC says about themselves, that a PPA may be best aligned with where they are financially, they still have to work on the RFP, which is not going to be done by government. It would be done by ANGLIC, and then that RFP will be put out to the market, and the analysis of that RFP will be done through the legislative way, how procurement works, which is again void of the political directorate, which is a completely independent process. So to say that Minister Hughes or the Premier has a specific interest, let us imagine that they did. It would not have been a situation where the Premier or Minister Hughes can say, use Hughes and Webster Electrical Company. It would have to go through a procurement process where a company would have to be chosen by a proper independent analysis. And we all know that there's no such Hughes and Webster Electrical Company. And that company would have to be proven to have a track record, would have done work across the world. And these two gentlemen have been very busy in their lives, but they haven't done anything in electricity. So where would be that track record? How could they even manage to meet the minimum requirements to even put forward a response to the RFP? I think as a country that we have to move away from this fear-mongering that we allow, even as journalists, and give credence to legitimate questions and lines of questions, and also use our minds to understand what is legitimate and what is not. Some of the things that's floating around here is not even worth the air. It's not even worth the airtime. To say that the process is being skewed or the process is being political. We are politicians, and we offered up a dream. We offered up an aspiration for this country, and we have the right to ensure when we get to that point that it's done in a sustainable manner. Because if we wanted to appease as opposed to do the right thing, it would be easy to say, let's go with what the board wanted to do, because that's the most political thing to do. There'll be less noise.
And apart from that, we fail to recognize the fact that we are British overseas territory. The scrutiny, the level of scrutiny isn't only in Anguilla. Any company that has to apply to this RFP, or answer to this RFP, there'll be a significant amount of due diligence that will be done. These people have to produce police records, to produce tax information, and so forth. So you'll be able to comb all the way through as much as you can in terms of Interpol, the financial FSE, and what have you. So it goes through a rigorous amount of due diligence. And don't think for 1 minute, and I want to make this clear, don't think for 1 minute that the British government is not watching, reading our emails, our WhatsApp messages, listening to our telephone calls, because they have the capability to do so. So if we think that Dr. Webster has some company or they have some interest, you will see him sitting down right next to Foy. You understand what I'm saying? So the reality is that we have to stop this foolishness about we getting something in our pocket. Dr. Webster didn't do extremely well in the US to come to Anguilla to become rich. To come to Anguilla to become rich. That was not the goal. The goal was to come back to give back. And he has been given back outside of politics, and he was actually pushed into politics. He didn't say, I want to come to be the Premier of Anguilla. We said, we want you to become the Premier of Anguilla, because we recognize the ability that the man had to lead. And from 2014, I stood up and put up my hand and said, you have to lead us. You have to lead us to the promised land. Hubert Hughes had brought us this far, but you have to lead us to the promised land. And that support has not wavered to this day. So when somebody can make that type of sacrifice to come back to this country, to deliver for the people of Anguilla, and then you have some people sitting down there every Monday night, every Monday morning, making the most ridiculous defamatory assertions, and then on a Thursday, it just baffles me. And it really upset me today, to be honest, and you have to forgive me, and I hope the pastor here can bless me with some discernment, that when I heard a little note of Rugby speaking about my father, a man who he never visited when he was sick and dying, and could say that my father died of a broken heart, is ridiculous. That is my father. And these people act as if they know Hubert Hughes better than me. We had a close relationship right down to his passing. So these are things I don't take lightly. None of us take lightly. And not because I'm an elected official, meaning that they can say the things about me, Dr. Webster, and my father, who is not in a position to defend himself today. He may not be in a position to defend himself, but I can, and I will.
Mr. Hughes, it's good to hear of the completion of the enabling works for the new terminal building at the airport. I have a question. Who is responsible for the designing of the building? Because you said the designs are in progress. And what kind of construction can we expect? What kind of a type of construction?
Well, I'm very pleased to say that the design, for the most part, have been done by our local architect, Cleve Richards and Raoul Vanderpool of V Architecture. Carl Richards, sorry, my bad. Carl Richards. They have done a tremendous job. What we have seen thus far, we are very impressed with. You can see the Blowing Point Ferry Terminal. You've seen it. You've even seen the Valley Central Clinic. But this airport, a lot of people have said we cannot surpass what was done at the Blowing Point Ferry Terminal. But believe me, even the warehouse is going to be an architectural, beautiful piece. So I'm very happy about that.
Do we anticipate steel frame construction?
No.
Or, okay, it's going to be reinforced concrete?
Yeah, reinforced concrete and building for the future. When I say building for the future, we're building with the ability to extend vertically and horizontally. So,
Modular construction.
yeah, we're looking 50, 60, 70 years down the road. As we may plant a mango tree today, but we might not eat the fruit. Right? My uncle, who's 96 years old, came by me the other day to get a slip for a plum tree. I said, Uncle, this plum tree is not going to bear for another 5 to 7 years. He said, and your point is? That's right.
Just a quick question as it relates to the Caribbean marketplace. You made mention that there'll be no
Well, I won't be there. I won't be attending.
no ministerial representative, but other hotels will be there?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, all right. And then you also made mention about the projections with American Airlines. You said so far, though, one hotel has
Aurora.
has given the green light for remaining open, and two others on standby.
Yeah, two others are seriously contemplating it. Definitely well over
But
six.
generally, as it relates to this going forward and beyond, what is the general feedback from other hotels? Are they fearful of the hurricane season? Is it expensive? What is the
No, it
general
isn't.
feedback?
It isn't the hurricane season only, and having the discussions with them because I try to stay close to them as possible. It is also a level of fatigue. The occupancies have been tremendously high, so there's a level of fatigue amongst the staff. That is one, and another area in which we need to be able to bring everybody to the table with, and that is the restaurants. Anguilla's there's a culinary capital of the Caribbean, and so when persons come to Anguilla, they want to be able to dine around, and the hotels are also dependent on the restaurants remaining open. So it's about everybody, the rising tide that floats all the boats. And so it is important that all of these services, these auxiliary services, remain open. And once they remain open, everybody will remain open. Then we can then achieve our goal of having, and it's not a rush, just want to get it done, of having an economy that is vibrant all year round.
Just a quick question going back to the whole Anglic issue. Is there any specific number as it relates to the interest groups who are interested in renewable energy?
Well, as far as I know there have been more than 10 interested groups that have come to us, but we have told them that this is the process. We've heard them out, but we have told them what the process is, so they have to just wait until the RFP. Now, I just want to make it clear. Government of Anguilla would not have developed the RFP. Anglic itself would have developed the RFP to say exactly how they want it to look, and walking through the procurement board, and they would have put it out on tender, but not us as a body.
Mr. Hughes, coming back to a question that I asked some time ago, and you tell me because of the uniqueness of Anguilla, they like uniqueness. This thing about having, I need to find Kenneth Hodge, but you tell me if you come to find me, you're going to pass 2 gillip tree and a black drum going down. So, are we having anything on the framework of really stratifying and putting our island, because you're putting up airport, you've done the Valley Road and these things. We need to have something decent that visitors coming and we ain't got to stop them and ask them where cold keel is and these things, but it is there. Do you know the lot?
As you can see, the ministry is also responsible for product development, and we've been erecting signs, speed signs, direction signs, road signs, and what have you. And that is something that we're discussing. As a matter of fact, we're going through trying to secure a product development officer right now, and that is one of the things that we'll be looking for. So your ideas have not gone on deaf ears. You were the one who recommended that the derelict building be removed, and this is an administration that listens, and when we listen, we act, because we don't have the monopoly on ideas, so we thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thanks for the questions. Somewhere in the back of my head, I think I may have said Felicia was with the Anguillian, but at Radio Anguilla. If I did say that, I apologize. I'll now go to the Minister for Sustainability, Innovation, and the Environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon again. So, not a whole lot of updates. We're doing lots of work, and so following Blue Week, we would have had a lot of partnerships to define and work to move forward with. So that is what's happening. So it's in keeping what was happening previously. Just to let you know that on Wednesday, I will be joining a high-level panel with the Island Innovation virtual Sustainable Finance Panel, Island Finance Forum. So I'll be attending along with the Honourable Manoa Kamika, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Government of Fiji, Dr. Denzel Douglas, Minister of Government in the Government of St. Kitts, Honourable Sabo Caesar, Minister of Government in the Government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Honourable Walter Roban, Deputy Premier and Minister of Government in the Government of Bermuda, and Dr. Joyelle Clark, Minister of Government in the Government of St. Kitts. And we will be working, speaking for about an hour and a half on matters of sustainable finance and how do we finance climate goals and ocean governance goals across the region, which, as we know, is severely underfunded, and how do we mobilize funds through different perspectives. So Minister Ruben and myself will be speaking on behalf of, not on behalf of OTs, but from an OT perspective. And I would have done something similar 2 weeks ago while I was in St. Lucia, and speaking on how, as Caribbean countries, we can integrate into the blue economy. Also speaking from an OT perspective, because we face a unique set of challenges, particularly after Brexit. And then next week, I'll be in Miami for the week with the Honourable Mark Brantley out of Nevis, the Honourable Otis Morris from the Government of Turks and Caicos, Honourable Walter Ruben again, Deputy Premier from the Government of Bermuda, Honourable Karine James from the Government of Grenada, and we will form part of a panel hosted by Robert Lehunt, Director for the Bahamas, Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, and Trinidad arm of the Inter-American Development Bank. And we will be speaking on, are we delivering on energy security and climate resilience for the region? This will be at the Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum. I'll be attending myself, Mr. Travis Carty, Director of Utilities, and the Deputy Chair of the Board of ANGLEC, Mr. Jibril Lewis. So this shows that we are moving in lockstep, and we are working together to meet the goals of renewable energy in Anguilla, and also working together to meet regional stakeholders who support the advancement of renewable energy. And I think this is it's an important step in our plan to integrate renewable energy. We'll be meeting with a lot of technical experts. We have quite a few meetings already lined up. I will be our meeting lead, but I definitely will be leaning on both Mr. Lewis and Mr. Carty for their institutional knowledge to bring about renewable energy integration into Anguilla. So there's quite a few things going on, and also in my other role for the week as acting Minister of Social Development and Education. This week marks the beginning of the National Week of Volunteerism, and there are quite a few activities that will be taking place from today to Friday. And I would have seen some of you this morning as I delivered welcome remarks as we embark on the first week of National Volunteerism. And I'm also pleased to announce on behalf of the Minister and to thank the members at this table and also the civil servants in the government of Anguilla for mobilizing over $9 million so that we can hopefully celebrate the operationalization of the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School campus on or before September 2023 so that our students can move off of the shift system. Going back to my actual substantive role, I also want to mention that April 20th is World Earth Day. Member of Cabinet and myself will be planting some mangroves in sandy ground. On the 20th, Thursday 20th, we'll be joining the Anguilla National Trust and other members of my ministry to do so. And definitely we look forward to doing our part to making Anguilla a safe place, and mangroves a really important structure in Anguilla and an environmental habitat, a safe habitat for the environment.
In the Executive Council minutes, I recognize that coming up soon we have the OECS Ministers of Sustainability meeting Anguilla will be hosting. What date is it exactly?
It's in June, so there's still some time to expound on that, but I'll be taking over chair of the Council of Ministers of the Environment for the OECS. And closer to that time, we will provide more details on what will be happening and who will be in attendance and some of the activities. Definitely, we are looking forward to hosting a press conference, so you definitely will be informed. And while I'm still speaking, many persons have asked me about the green space that's happening in the valley. And if you've passed by, you've seen lots of work being done. So we've completed our duck pond. We've partnered with quite a few persons within the community and businesses within the community who've assisted us in getting even further features. We're looking forward to opening that space. I will give you a date the next time I'm back, so probably sometime in May, on when we will be opening, but it is something that myself and the Parliamentary Secretary have been working on to ensure that there is a proper green space in Anguilla. And in the same breath, the work for the Blowing Point Sports Facility would also begin this week, and that's me speaking as Minister of Sports. The hats keep switching.
As it relates to the high-level meetings, in general, we know that climate change, this is a topic throughout, and especially more for smaller and developing states like Anguilla and the rest of the Caribbean. What is really the goal? Are we looking to get funding for the Caribbean? Are we looking to get funding for ourselves specifically? Are we looking to get funding as a BOT? Exactly what are we looking to get out of these meetings as it relates to funding?
Well, as you can imagine, there can be more than one goal headed into the meetings like this, and those are all goals that we have in mind. Ultimately, we would like to mobilize more funds to the region. We would also like to, how can I say this? We want to reduce the bureaucracy around access of funds. So, for example, if a funding agency is funding the OECS, they should not then say that these monies can't be sent on British overseas territories. They should fund the OECS, and the OECS should be able to identify the needs. And similarly, in order to get that done effectively, we are simultaneously pushing forward for the multidimensional vulnerability index to form a part in who should qualify for funds and removing the geopolitics out of funding the region. So this process can take place individually. If I have an opportunity to individually represent these interests to a funding agency internationally, I definitely can do that on behalf of Anguilla. But in the same breath, when we get together, for example, at these different panels that we are joining on and we're speaking on behalf of ourselves, but as a cohort, what is the reality in the region? And one of the things I think is going to come out of the CREF is the fact that we don't have enough support to sift through the different interests coming into the region. So there's somebody who's going to talk about how much work they can do in sustainability, but we don't have enough. We don't have enough support in finding out that this person is actually tested and true, and we should allow them into our territories and into our ocean spaces if they're a trusted resource. There's piracy all around. The different people trying to move forward with different agendas. So we have been asking for technical support, capacity building support, as well as finance. But as you can imagine, when you find the problem, you want to fix it. And it is usually the lack of finance that prohibits us from moving forward.
I know as it relates to our membership with the CDB, I know when the governor was saying, he made mention that he supports the BOTs coming together and in one accord to really push our drive and our initiatives forward, because he thinks it make a stronger case. Is that something we are looking to do?
That's definitely something that we're looking to do. That would be done more from the Premier's point of view, though, as a representative on the board of governors of the CDB. But basically speaking, we have been victim to Brexit in more ways than one can imagine. And one of the ways that is, like I said, when funding agencies such as the CDB has access to funds, they're then told that they can't provide grants to overseas territories because of, by definition, we are an extension of the UK. And as a result, it looks as though one developed country is giving money to another developed country, when the reality in these overseas territories is that we aren't developed. So there is a desire to work with the OECS, the CDB, CARICOM, and other organizations, to represent the Caribbean region as a cohort and remove the international lens that they try to impose on us, because at the end of the day, we suffer from the same vulnerabilities, and we are not completely, we can't count our resilience as something that matters if the country next to us doesn't have the same access to support to improve its resilience. And as a result, there's a need to work within the region to present ourselves as a cohort.
We understand that it is anticipated that the new campus of the Albino Lake Arts Comprehensive School will be opened this coming September, hopefully, I believe. Are there any plans in hand for the utilization of the current space, the old school?
So currently there are no plans, but that's okay still, because the school will not have all of the spaces that's necessary for the students. So what will happen is that there will be a system of busing students between the two campuses in order to give them the robust education that they deserve. Again, which goes back to this administration's position that this was not the best idea to move forward with a new campus, because it wasn't, well, it was forward thinking in what the school should provide for the students. It really understated the importance of having proper finance to mobilize an aspiration like that. If you don't have the finances, no matter how good the vision is, if the vision can't be fulfilled, the students are disadvantaged. So right now there's no vision for what the school can be utilized for, but there is hope that we can at least have the students go to school and remain in one campus and have all of the access for their TVET and their technical studies in one campus, but that's not the reality. So those students who are doing the technical studies will be moving between the two locations. And sports as well.
Thank you. We go to the Minister for Home Affairs.
Thank you, Premier. Just want to update media colleagues that last week, Anguilla was represented at the second ordinary meeting of the Council of Ministers and Senior Officials of Immigration held in Dominica on 13th April. So I was represented there by the Chief Immigration Officer, Ms. Lorraine Bryan, and she was accompanied by Senior Immigration Officer Ivor Hall. The Anguillan representatives have indicated that they found the meeting very productive, as they were able to interact with their colleagues from the region about the different procedures and technologies being used to enhance immigration systems and processes within the OECS region. And all the OECS member states were present at this meeting with the exception of BVI. Just to note, among the areas of discussion, one of them was the implementation of automation processes at the border entry points, and I'm speaking in particular about the online ED form. Anguilla is currently working on the final design of its embarkation form, ED form, and we are committed to moving this initiative to completion. The implementation of this across the various ports of entry is being advanced in an effort to enhance operational efficiency and reduce passenger processing times. So far, St. Kitts, Nevis, St. Lucia, and Grenada have completed and launched their online ED forms. Anguilla is still in the final, as I said, final design stages of that. And then again, Anguilla needs to move ahead with a legal framework for the Advanced Passenger Information, APIS, as we call it, and that actually is one of my work plan ideas for this year as well. So we are very much committed to moving forward with that. And then again, you are noticing across the region the movement towards kiosk machines. So Anguilla hasn't done that as yet. We are hoping perhaps with the new airport that we can see that system being implemented. So all in all, The meeting was a productive one, and I want to thank the Chief Immigration Officer for doing a very able job of representing the Ministry and Department of Immigration at those meetings in Dominica. That's my main update. Of course, I'm open to any other questions as the press
You
may
said
have.
2 other countries have so far implemented the automation system. Anguilla next are looking to. What is the actual cost of this program?
You talking about the online ED form?
Yes.
I don't know the cost offhand, but I know it's an online system, right? And it will significantly cut down, first of all, the paper. There will be a major savings on paper. And we are hoping to see that this year. In terms of the actual cost, I don't have a costing here today, but I can easily ask a question about that.
Quick and efficient. I say it's quick and efficient.
Yes, definitely. But as you know too, if you're passing through any of the ports now, you realize that they are able now to scan your passports.
Yes.
So all of that makes for greater efficiency. So we are on the track, the right track, so to speak. We just need to complete those processes and get to the end of that route.
Mr. Hodge, some time ago, I heard you mention an amnesty period for non-registered residents, for those who are not documented on Anguilla. How is that going, and is that period still open?
That period is closed, but I want to thank you for raising that issue, because during that amnesty period, we were at pains to tell persons that the amnesty was simply an initiative to help them to bring their status up to order. It was never about reducing fees or forgiving fees. And it was well represented, it was well, persons took advantage of it. But I'm now beginning to get quite a number of persons coming in with similar issues again. And I want to encourage persons to ensure that their status on island is properly regulated. As they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And once persons are here and they are working, they should ensure that they have the necessary work permits in hand. I know some persons who have gone to school here for 5 years or more, they qualify for exemptions, and we encourage persons who are in that category to apply for the exemptions that allows them to work. An exemption is simply a work permit minus the fees. Of course, there are also immigration fees that have to be paid, and we cannot forgive any fees. As I said to someone just today, this government and no government can forgive fees. The only body can do that is the House of Assembly. So I'm encouraging persons, not that if you raise that question, to ensure that they are who are here living or working illegally, to make sure they get their status up to date.
Thank you, Minister. I just want to, say congratulations to the Anguilla boys on the 15 football squad that went to the BVI, and they cleaned up over there. I saw some of the scores coming back and was very, happy to see that our boys, represented us well, and they're now back home. So we thank God for traveling mercies, but we are delighted to know that they've done so well. So congratulations to the boys under 15 football team. I just want to say, in terms of the ministries that I'm responsible for, the Ministry of Health, Finance, Economic Development, we are working on getting the health care for those 70 years and older. Should be going to Executive Council this week for a start date of the 1st of May. That is the plan. Certainly it has to be approved through Executive Council. The funding was put in place in the budget for this year. And I think, I get so many phone calls every day by interested Anguillians Not many of them are over 70, though. It's like, I think they're more concerned about their parents and grandparents that they have this coverage. Also, the transitioning of the Health Authority back to the Ministry of Health, that process is ongoing. The Reform Board did submit the interim report, and we will review that in Executive Council. Intentions to do that this week as we move forward to a final report and the process that will return that delivery of healthcare services back in the Ministry of Health. And we look forward to that happening. We did pass the supplementary budget number 1, 2023 in the House of Assembly this past Friday. And as was mentioned earlier, almost $10 million was put there to help to complete the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School so that it can be opened. And the plan is to get it open for the September 2023 to start that school year and get the students off the split shift system. Also, we had to move funds from the capital budget for the water development, where the intention was to improve the network, since we have over 80% leaks in the system. $3 million of that had to be moved into the recurrent expenditure to help cover electricity costs for the Water Corporation for water production. We want to update the Altima Marina project. There were a couple of revisions requested on the MOU, and or the MOA, that since it was signed 2006, and then 2017, and then 2019, and then 2021. But there's a couple of revisions that are being done by the new entity that wants to build a marina. We are getting that completed. Savannah Bay development and the MOU, and so a few revisions were requested, and those are being reviewed now by the Ministry of Economic Development. Rendezvous Bay project for marina, luxury hotel and luxury villas, and that is on the way. We've been assured that the funding is in place, and it's just a matter of procuring the land and getting going. Cebu redevelopment project, that is also underway, and we're working on the alien landholding licenses and then the MOU for that. So we see there's a lot of activity that is planned, and you know, that's a good thing for this country in terms of jobs in construction, but also in the hospitality industry. But also, you know, our goals are, and 2 clauses we put in our MOUs, that there has to be a social project, and that has to be named in the MOU. Previously, there would be mention of a social project, and then that the developer and the government of Anguilla would have 6 months to come up with the specific details, and that never happened. So we make sure that it has to be written into the MOU, and as you can see with the sale of Cuisinart, which is now Aurora, we got the MRI scanner. There's a school lunch program. There's also some other was written in about a neighborhood health clinic that we're working on that. Also looking at equipment for the hospital. So these are all commitments that have been made by Mr. Schultz and the Richard Schultz Family Foundation. The second clause was that if the developer brought in a foreign contractor to do any work that any local contractors that were used had to be paid. And so money has to be put in escrow or a bond to ensure that if that foreign contractor left, like DCK did in the past, that those funds would be there to pay our local contractors. They can't be left, haven't done the work, and left holding the bag. And so those, that's what we've done, and we continue to look out for the people of Anguilla. We also ensure that they have to use Anguillan labor as long as that skill is available, and heavy equipment, buy from the hardware stores as long as the supplies are here that they need. And so those are the safeguards we have put in place, and we do follow up to make sure that those are being honored. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
COVID-19 update.
COVID-19 update, the testing area that was at the Ministry of Health, we now rely on the clinics and the hospital to do the testing. We do know that there are sporadic cases in the community of COVID. I don't know exactly how many there are today, but I know that there's very small amount that have been showing up, but still you have to be careful because COVID is still there. It's not going to go away at this point. We have to continue to do the hygiene measures, continue to, if you have symptoms of upper respiratory tract infection, to isolate yourself from among persons and take those precautions. We do track what's happening in the world in terms of COVID and also any other viral events that come up. The Chief Medical Officer, the Ministry of Health, and the health professionals are keeping close tabs on what's happening in the world.
Premier, another issue that I think is of concern is mental health.
Very
and
much
how
so.
we are coping with mental health here in Anguilla and the facilities. Can you update us on things that are happening there?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that question. Mental health is very important to us. In fact, when I was in Washington, D.C., back in March, I had a meeting with Dr. Anselm Hennis, who is the director for chronic diseases and mental health at the Pan American Health Organization, and discussed our concerns about mental health post COVID or during COVID, increased incidence of domestic violence. We've had the study done in 2019 which showed that there was a significant number of students at the high school who had contemplated or attempted suicide, and the numbers were concerning. We talked about remote counselors, because in Anguilla we have a limited number of counselors and psychologists who can help these students and adults too. So we talked about setting up that program of remote counseling where persons can call a number, talk to someone who's overseas, and they might be more willing to do that given the confidentiality of it. And also we put in the budget last year and this year for a psychiatrist. We have not been able to recruit a psychiatrist as yet. They are needed everywhere. We do use the virtual services of the psychiatrist and the BVI, but that is not ideal. We need somebody on the ground to take care of these mental health issues that are becoming more and more rampant. We did, during COVID, the psychiatric unit, part of that was used as isolation area for COVID. We are working on getting an isolation unit separate that will be next to the dialysis unit that's being built. and that way we can get back the full complement of the psych unit for patients who need inpatient services. At the clinics, they do have counseling sessions for those who have, mental issues. Certainly not enough. We do need to have more of those services available, more personnel, counselors, psychologists, and that psychiatrist who can help.
I think there are other challenges that they're having their transportation and housing for chronic ill persons. Those are some other challenges that the unit, I think, they are having.
Certainly. I mean, there are a lot of issues that we are working through. And one of the things that has come from this, when you got the health reform board going through the transition process has really highlighted a lot of issues in health. And I think that some that you just mentioned and others that we are starting to work on were brought to the forefront because of the interviewing that was done, the patient interactions, just going through the different services that are possible and available. We have highlighted that healthcare in Anguilla needs a complete overhaul, and that is one of the things that I'm committed to make sure that we get done.
Is there an annual budget for that?
For what is now the Health Authority, or for the new? Well, there is an annual budget for Health Authority. We commit to $21 million as a subvention. It got as high as $24 million during the height of COVID, but that has come down some. The Health Authority is expected to make some of that funding that they need. The budget total is about $36 million. We do know that there are some issues that arrears, and so the plan is that we will be looking into how to provide an affordable, accessible, quality healthcare service for the people of Anguilla. One of those programs, as I mentioned earlier, is the health care for those who are 70 years and older, to provide that care free. So we'll get into more details on that as we go to Executive Council on Thursday with that plan, and then we will make it
Looking
public.
forward to the 4th of May.
Well, you're not 70 years old. You keep telling me that, but I think you just enhance your years so that you could get free health care.
Dr. Webster, in your presentation, you made mention of the working relationship with these investor groups, and we know that Anguilla came on stream to assist with the redevelopment of the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School. I don't know if maybe the Minister of Infrastructure yourself want to comment on that aspect. We know you went to the House, and a part of the supplementary budget will be afforded to that particular project.
Yes, certainly. I'd be happy to expound on that. Annie Villas, which is now Annie Private Resort, they have a facility already in Little Bay, and they wanted to build or building over in Shoal Bay. And with that, for their social commitment, since Mr. Reynolds is very much into education and computer, so he committed to $200,000 US for building of a new computer lab at the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School. The minister noted that the building that is nearest to the water in Island Harbor, that it's basically falling apart. There are cracks. We're concerned about the structure, and whenever the sea gets high, it floods in that area, and so that was a plan. Given that the new lab was going to be built, the 2 classrooms that attached to the old lab, it was felt that they should also be replaced. And so this administration and decided to fund that. And so we've budgeted 950,000 EC dollars to build the 2 classrooms that will attach to the computer lab that any private resort will fund. They also, any private resort, not only gave the $200,000, but they also committed to another $300,000 that will help to develop further computer lab facility. And the minister has also looked into building a business incubator program where you can have creatives, those who can do computer apps, and those are developing the orange economy, and that's what she is committed to, and Annie Villas is funding that with another $300,000 US dollars.
Mr. Hughes, what about plans for the construction of the Lansable Cultural Center? No summer festival is just around the corner.
The initial drawings are being done in the Ministry of Infrastructure. I had an update last week. They're progressing well. It's going to take some time for those designs to be completed. I'll say a few months. But obviously, once they are completed, they'll be brought for consultation as well among the stakeholders, because what the minister wants to create, and we're talking with the minister, we're talking about the Ankendish Rogers, wants to create is a multi-functional cultural center which can accommodate things like plays, let's say Sunshine Theater want to conduct a play, any other organization, dance recitals, musical recitals. It's going to be able to cover a whole gamut of different areas. But I just want to say something quickly on the airport development. What we found with the airport development is that now it's attracting a whole lot of interest in Anguilla as a destination to invest in. The airport development is signaling to the world that we are serious about ensuring that Anguilla is ready for business and can facilitate business. So not only are we having a lot of interest from foreign direct investors, but we're having a lot of interest from aviation companies from as far as Canada into the US. Obviously, we're not prepared to make an announcement at this time, but I can tell you that we remain engaged with not only the investors, but also with the aviation companies.
Okay, all right. Dr. Webster, last week the former Premier, Mr. Banks, issued a statement in support of casino gambling. Some persons expressed disappointment with his statement. Some persons asking for a retraction. But do you think this bolsters government's position, or it doesn't really matter for you?
Well, as I said, gaming is in the medium-term economic fiscal plan. We met it there. A study was done in 2019 by the former administration. So, I wasn't surprised that, the former premier would come out in support. He did also say that he had a interest. And so, but we're going through the consultative phase. That is what we do. We allow the people to give their opinions.
What weight is given to those, especially the Evangelical Association and the Anguilla Christian Council, what weight is given to those groups who oppose casino gambling?
I don't know that we have a weighting system per se. It's basically we listen to all views, and all of that will be taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Banks mentioned that he's working with a particular group. Are there other interests from other groups besides this particular group that he's affiliated with?
Yes, and they're also locals, local persons who have either submitted applications or have shown interest. In fact, we had a meeting with interested persons right here in this room prior to meeting with the Christian Council and Evangelical Association. And I must say that my table was, almost fully surrounded. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any decision as it relates to the particular location, venue for these structures, for the casinos?
No, if it goes ahead, as the policy says, it would be, to stand alone, and there's no commitment either way. And location, certainly that would be determined If the policy goes through and legislation is done and licenses are granted, that would be determined later on.
Mr. Webster, you mentioned two standalone facilities, and that's what the policy says, but in your last press conference, I believe you mentioned two, possibly three. Could you explain that for us?
Well, that's what the policy says is two, yeah. So,
Possibly three?
So when I said possibly three, that would again be in terms of, possibilities. That's me talking, but as you see the policy, it's written two. Yeah.
Okay. And the consultation process is in session. There was a public consultation and a meeting with the clergy. Where are we now, would you say, and what is the next step? What time frame is this consultation? Is it over, or what are the next steps anticipated?
No, the consultation stage is not over, because it's not just going into the House of Assembly for the public consultation. There's email address, persons can write in their comments, people can call, which happens. People meet on the street and give their opinions. No, the process is not over. There's no specific time frame.
Okay. And I have another question. You mentioned about revisions to the Altima MOA and Savannah Bay. Are you able to tell us what is the nature of these revisions?
No. That's right now between the developers and the government. So when we are at the point, we don't usually discuss the MOAs while they're going through negotiation stage. Am I right, Minister? Yeah. Those are done between the Trade and Investment Officer, the Permanent Secretary, and Economic Development. There's a Trade and Investment Committee that then looks at the whole process, and the lawyers and developers, they work those out. Certainly, I don't know that that's ever been done where they are discussed prior to being signed.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you for your patience today, and certainly thanks for being out here. We apologize that, may have been that the time got confused again, because last time we went to 3 o'clock, but that was just a special circumstance. We usually 2 o'clock, first and third Mondays of the month, unless that Monday is a holiday. And so look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for being here, asking the questions that are pertinent to the people of Anguilla. Thank you for being objective, and may God bless you and continue to bless Anguilla. Thank you very much.